So I mentioned this giant trade deal that did not get a lot of attention because it doesn't it doesn't involve Canada or the U.S., but it involves a large swath of the world, which includes the European Union and India. And it's a major deal. It was actually framed as the mother of all trade deals. That's what they're calling it. So I thought we should try to find out more. Julian Karaguesian is once served in the Canadian Ministry of Finance and now a professor of economics at McGill. Julian, thanks so much for coming on. Look, I read the highlight here, and I'll just go through the first two. India, as part of this deal, is going to eliminate or reduce tariffs on 96.6% of EU goods and exports. And the EU is going to, they say, liberalize 99.5% of its tariff lines for Indian goods over the next 7 years. So while the U.S. has been busy hiking tariffs on everyone, here's a deal where we're doing exactly the opposite. How significant is this in your estimation?
I think it's symbolic and it's significant at a very real level. It's huge in two ways. At a symbolic level, it's the rest of the world, more evidence that the rest of the world's moving on, that it doesn't want to fight, that it wants to trade. And at a the material level, it's immense because the two populations, India now surpasses China, as you mentioned in your intro, at about 1.5 billion people, and the EU is close to 500 million. So it's 2 billion people. It's a quarter of the world's population. It's also about a quarter of the world's economy, and it's right now they do about 180 billion in trade. It's not very much. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. And so that you could see that easily doubling, tripling, quadrupling over the next 10 to 20 years. And there's obviously immense scope for Canada to expand. It's kind of a trickle of trade right now with India as well. So this is huge in many ways.
So with respect to Canada, I mentioned our focus clearly has been on Canada, U.S., and how we get through that. But we also know that Mark Carney's been traveling around the world doing deals here and there, and the Chinese EV deal was a big deal, but he's done other ones as well, and is planning apparently on going to India to do one there too. So how significant is this as far as it relates to Canada?
Well, I think right across the Pacific is 3 billion people just in China and India. And if you look at Southeast Asia as well and the rest of South Asia, there's 2 billion people just in South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India. And if you add China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia, it's over 4 billion people. And so it's big. The EU-India deal paves the way for a Canadian deal because, again, India's traditionally been a very closed economy. During the Cold War, it was non-aligned, but it was close with the Soviet Union, with Russia. And now we're, well into a new world order. It just doesn't have a name yet. Carney mentioned that last week and signaled the end of the old order, and it's been like that for at least 10 years. And so we're in a new world, and India is an emerging giant. And so right now, at official exchange rates, at market exchange rates, India's economy is only about twice the size of Canada's. But when you look at what money can buy, what the rupee can buy, India's economy is actually about 20 trillion. It's about 10 times the size of Canada's. And it's equivalent, really, in what your money can buy there to the size of the EU economy. So the potential is immense for us to sell food products, energy, minerals, and you name it, right down the line.
I read, by the way, in sort of notes on this deal, and I thought this is interesting, again, given the U.S. perspective, Indian tariffs on European cars, which had been 110%, are going down to 10%. Exactly the opposite of what the U.S. has tried to do with, European cars coming into the U.S.
Yeah, that alone. So that's going to be phased in over 7 to 10 years. And there's initially going to be a quota of 250,000 cars, 250,000 European vehicles will be allowed into the Indian market. It's similar in scale to the Canada-Chinese EV deal, so it's not big, but again, it's indicative of what's to come. And probably most of those European cars are going to go to the high end, India's upper and high income classes of people. But this opens the way for much, much more. So again, it's I think the president of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, she said that it's the second and fourth largest economies. When you look at what money can buy, actually India is larger than the EU. When you look at it it's called purchasing power parity. and the EU is probably the world's fourth largest economy. And so it's immense, and it's also indicative of this new order.
Yeah.
America seems to be increasingly going it alone, and the rest of the world is getting on with business.
It's interesting as you say that. I think to myself, for everything Donald Trump said about we want to build here, we don't need to buy from anybody else, we have the workers, we can do it here. The rest of the world did not sit idly by. And I realize this deal now, this China-India deal, didn't happen, in a day. They've been working on this for years, but it would certainly seem to me that his attitude made deals like these happen a lot faster, perhaps, than we thought they would.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I think that's the case. And it's because, I think Donald Trump realized that it's not just free trade that the United States created after World War II, where everybody was supposed to benefit in some way from open borders. But, I think he realized right away, and I think the people who run the United States have always realized this, that this gave them enormous leverage, being the consumer, the consumer of last resort of the world. And he's used that, and he's used uncertainty even more than access. And so he's created this enormous amount of trade policy uncertainty. He's weaponized access to the U.S. market. And so people are reacting. Markets adapt, individuals adapt, and governments adapt. And unfortunately, it's kind of tragic for the regular American that they're increasingly being shut out of the global market. And this is going to affect their long-term competitiveness, and it will affect their prosperity as the rest of the world comes together. And as you mentioned, Mark Carney's next big trip is probably going to be India in the spring. We
got to leave it at that, Julian. I'm out of time. Always appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Take care. You too. Julian Karaguesian, professor of economics over at McGill. That's what it is, huh? Kind of painting yourself into a corner if the rest of the world decides to trade and kind of leaves the U.S. on its own, so not everyone's just buying just from them. Is that where we're going?
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada, the station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required, just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.